If we would sit in the energy of Tupac Shakur and Bob Marley and imagine what they would speak into today's world, it would, this is my opinion, it would be like this. Tupac's words would be raw, urgent, and filled with unfiltered truth. He would call out the systems of oppression, mass incarceration, and the ways the industry manipulates minds and silences voices. He'd warn us about being distracted by fame, money, and vanity when the real battle is spiritual and systemic. He would say things like, don't let them trick you into being your own enemy. Wake up. Or the streets are still crying and the same systems that killed me are alive today. He would also have a message of the youth are powerful, but you have to see through the illusions. They've turned rebellion into fashion, but real revolution is sacrifice. He'd remind us that change is not just eternal or external, both. It's mental and spiritual armor. Tupac would speak for the voiceless, the poor, and the forgotten, pushing us to stay awake and not sell out. Bob Marley's voice would be a little softer, but just as piercing, filled with healing and higher wisdom. He'd call us back to unity, love, and divine connection. His words would cut through the noise of division, reminding us that we are one people and one humanity. He would say things like, don't let Babylon keep you divided. In Babylon, he was termed to mean oppressors. And when he says divided, he's speaking about race, class, borders, politics, because he spoke that all are illusions that were meant to keep you from love. The cure, I believe he would say, is already inside of you. It's in music, in the earth, in your spirit. Heal yourself, and then you can heal the world. He would say, wake up, stand up. Don't just live for survival. Live for freedom and love. Bob Marley would remind us that true liberation isn't just political, it's spiritual in nature. He would call us back to nature, to our roots, to simplicity, and to a consciousness that rises above materialism and hate. Together, I believe that their combined energy, Tupac would be the fire and Bob Marley would be the healing balm. Tupac would shake us awake with uncomfortable truth, but Bob Marley would soothe us with reminders of divine purpose. Tupac would warn us about how systems weaponize our pain, and Bob Marley would show us how to turn pain into unity and love. And if they stood side by side today, their message would be, don't be fooled, don't be divided, don't give your energy to the system. Rise in truth, rise in love, and build a new world. They were not just two legends, they were also two prophets. They were two voices the system could not silence. Tupac Shakur and Bob Marley, different times, different rhythms, but the same fire in their soul. What if their energy was alive with us today? What would they say to us about the world we live in, about our struggles, the distractions, and the illusions? I want you guys to stay with me because I want to speak to the timeless energy of Tupac and Bob Marley and their messages because they might just save someone's soul. If Tupac were here today, he wouldn't sugarcoat it. He'd look us dead in the eye and say, the system that killed me is still alive. Mass incarceration, poverty, police brutality, it's the same story, just with new packaging. He'd call us out. He'd call also the industry out that sells rebellion like it's a fashion sense, but silences truth when it cuts too deep. Tupac would warn us how that they were tricking him, and they can trick you into worshiping money, fame, and vanity, and let you know how you're being distracted while the real war is spiritual, so you are not to be fooled. He would speak to the youth, the lost ones, the ones drowning in hopelessness, saying, you are powerful, but you gotta wake up. Don't let them program you. Rebellion ain't just about chains, tattoos, or guns. And when I say chains, we're talking about the jewelry. It's about freeing your mind. Pac energy today would be fire, raw, painful, and urgent. A reminder that truth tellers still pay the highest price, but silence would cost even more. Let's talk about Bob Marley, a more calming, spiritual individual with reggae in his heart and in his soul. If he was to step forward, his energy doesn't come with fire first. It comes with healing, with the medicine of love and unity. He would warn us. He would tell us that Babylon, the oppressors, divide you. They divide you through race, class, politics, and borders. But these are illusions to keep you fighting each other. He would remind us that the cure is already inside of each of us, that it's in the music, in the earth, in the spirit. And to heal ourselves and to heal the world starts with healing within our scars, our pain, our wounds. And he will call us back to our roots, simplicity, nature, and love, because that's where the power is. Asking us not to get lost in materialism and not to forget who you are, because you are the light, you are love, you are one. His energy would be a healing balm to the chaos, showing us that true liberation isn't just political, it's spiritual. Freedom doesn't come from power over others, it comes from oneness with each other. Together, they would tell us not to give our energy to the system. Don't let them harvest your pain, your grief, your distraction. Rise in truth, rise in love. Tupac would be the fire, and Bob Marley would be the healing balm. Tupac would shake us awake with those uncomfortable truths, and Bob Marley would heal us with divine purpose. Tupac would warn us about the traps of the enemy, which is the industry. But Bob Marley would show us the path back to nature and spirit. The revolution is not on the screen, it's inside you. Change your mind, change your energy, and you change the world. And this is not about remembering their music, it's about remembering their mission. So if you wonder why voices like Tupac and Bob Marley were silenced too soon, it's because they carried messages that threatened the system. But their energy cannot die. Their spirit is here waiting for us to rise. So ask yourself today, am I giving my energy to the system, or am I reclaiming it to build love, unity, and truth? Because Tupac and Bob Marley are still speaking. The question is, are we listening? They were tricked into feeding the system's energy. Tupac, the system took a brilliant young man from poetry and activism, and they lured him into a gangster image. He became the face of a culture of violence and chaos he actually wanted to expose, not glorify. The more drama, beef, and headlines, the more records sold, and the more his life force became a spectacle for public consumption. The machine turned his truth-telling into entertainment, feeding off the controversy and pain he carried. Bob Marley's energy was also exploited in concerts and tours and heavy schedules that drained him physically while his message was commercialized. His message was of one love, and that was diluted and branded, even used by the same political and corporate forces he was warning about. When he was shot in 1976 before the Smile Jamaica concert, it was a clear warning. His music was powerful, but politics wanted to control or silence it. He died at 36 from cancer, but even in death, his image was monetized far beyond his control. Both men were turned into icons rather than messengers. Their pain and rebellion were authentic, and they were used as fuel for a system they were fighting. If Tupac could do things differently today, I believe he would be more careful with his alliances, because he would understand that not everyone riding with you is for you. He would have protected his spirit more, because he would come to understand that fame is a contract. They don't just want your talent, they want your soul. I believe he would have moved quieter, and stayed alive and built his own system rather than spending all of his life force trying to change a system that was outside of him. What would Bob Marley say today? What would his energy give us today? I believe that he would have rested more and protected his health. I believe that Babylon, which is the oppressors, they burn you out so you can't finish your work. He was burnt out. I believe he would have owned more of his message, his masters, his image, his publishing. He would have not allowed his his spirit to be commercialized without his permission. He would have been more strategic with how his music was used so that it couldn't be turned into slogans for the same forces he opposed. And together, they would say, protect your energy and your image. Build your own platform before you enter theirs. Don't let them make you a brand. Stay a messenger. Keep your spirit pure, even when they offer you the world, because the world they give you comes at the cost of your soul. Don't confuse exposure with power. Don't trade your authenticity for visibility. Protect your health, your spirit, and your message. And own your platform so no one can distort your voice. Who were their enemies? For Tupac, it was the labels and executives who profited from promoting violence, chaos, and division, but didn't protect the artists behind the image. FBI and local police had opened files on him because of his ties to Black Panther family members and his activism. Mainstream media painted him as a thug instead of an activist, shaping public opinion to make him look dangerous instead of prophetic. And the street politics and rival gangs, industry figures, and hidden power brokers who used him as a pawn in East versus West drama. He was making a positive impact. He was speaking on mass incarceration, systemic racism, poverty, and hypocrisy in America. He was giving voice to the voiceless, youth of the inner city. He was planning community initiatives like his Code of Thug Life to reduce violence and unify street factions. He was trying to shift his message toward politics and empowerment before his death. He was feared because he was charismatic, he was brilliant, and he could mobilize. That's a dangerous mix for a system built on keeping people divided. He could translate complex social issues into raw, emotional poetry that reached millions. He had a militant edge, like his Black Panther relatives, but also mainstream star power. If he lived today, he might have become a true political force or an independent media powerhouse. What about Bob Marley and his enemies? The political powers in Jamaica and abroad, the intelligence agencies, the corporate interests, the assassins and attackers, right? How was he making a positive impact? By spreading messages of unity, peace, and spiritual freedom across racial and national borders, bringing Rastafarian philosophy, which is a message of liberation from Babylon, which is the oppressors and the oppression, to a more global audience. He was hosting free concerts that literally stopped street violence and drew rival factions together. He was inspiring oppressed people worldwide to reclaim dignity, culture, and spirituality. Why was he feared? His music wasn't just entertainment. It was political, it was spiritual, and it was revolutionary. He could fill stadiums and shift public consciousness without needing a politician or a pulpit. He was a Pan-Africanist. He was a voice with global reach at a time when colonial and Cold War powers feared Black unity. His one love wasn't passive. It was radical unity which threatens all systems built on division. They did have commonality. Why the system feared them both? Because they had a mass influence and they were authentic. They couldn't be manufactured. So both men reached millions of hearts and minds without intermediaries. They were crossing boundaries. They transcended race, class, and geography. Their messages united people who weren't supposed to unite. There was a spiritual and political mix. They spoke not just of rights but of spirit, which is far more dangerous to a control system. What about independence? Both were moving toward owning their platforms, their message, and their movements. And ultimately, they were unpredictable because neither could be fully controlled or co opted, and that makes any figure a threat to entrenched power. They painted Tupac as the villain, but actually, he was building a plan to free his people. For Bob Marley, they tried to shoot him, but they couldn't stop the music because the music is a weapon of love. Both knew the power of an awakened mind cannot be controlled, and that is why the powers feared them. Let's talk about the documented facts. Tupac was shot in 1994 at Quad Recording Studios in New York. He survived but became deeply paranoid, feeling set up by people he trusted. He suffered from PTSD that was left untreated. In 1996, he was shot multiple times in Las Vegas in a drive-by shooting and died days later. And what was the mainstream's narrative? The official story framed both incidents of gang or industry rival, East versus West Coast, Suge Knight, Bad Boy Records, etc. But the deeper unproven narrative people discuss, Tupac was not just a rapper but a politically aware, charismatic figure from a Black Panther family. Surveillance and infiltration of black activist groups was standard by FBI and CIA practice through the 70s and 80s. Some believe his image was manipulated into gangster rap to neutralize his revolutionary appeal, and when that failed, he was eliminated. Being shot once didn't silence him. His influence grew, so the second shooting was final. Tupac wasn't just a rapper. He was a voice for the voiceless. They tried once, he lived. They tried again, he didn't. So ask yourself why a young man speaking truth to power became a target twice. Why was Bob Marley poisoned? The documented facts. In 1976, gunmen attacked Marley's home before his Smile Jamaica concert. He was grazed by bullets but survived. In 1977, he was diagnosed with a malignant melanoma on his toe, but he refused full amputation for spiritual reasons, and the cancer spread. So he died in 1981 at the age of 36. The mainstream narrative was his death was from untreated melanoma. No evidence of poisoning is accepted by mainstream medicine. But what was the deeper unproven narrative people discuss? Many in Jamaica and abroad believe Bob Marley was targeted by foreign intelligence because his concert swayed elections and united rival factions. The CIA was active in Jamaica at that time. Later declassified documents show they monitored him. Some allege that a gifted pair of boots or a device with a poisoned wire inside led to melanoma. Now, this story comes from Marley's associates but has never been proven. But regardless of the origin, his illness took him off the global stage at the peak of his influence. Bob Marley's voice reached across borders, breaking colonial and Cold War lines. They shot at him and failed. A year later, a cancer appeared in his foot and took his life. Coincidence? Or a quiet removal of a threat to Babylon? Tupac today would say, if you are a truth teller, protect yourself. Move smart. Everyone smiling in your face isn't your friend. Bob Marley. He would say they can take the body but not the message. Love is the greatest weapon, but guard your health, guard your energy. They both stress that when you speak for the oppressed and united people and you unite, you attract forces that want to break or neutralize you. And you must have spiritual, physical, and strategic protection. This is one of the most sensitive parts of their stories because no one has ever been officially convicted or proven to have directly set them up. In either case, What we're left, what we are left with are the facts we can verify, and then the patterns and suspicions that swirl around them. Here's how to frame it truthfully, but still powerfully for us. Who got close enough to Tupac? The facts. In 1994, the Quad Studio shooting, Tupac said publicly that he believed people inside the industry set him up, right? So he accused people he once trusted, but no conviction was ever made. In 1996, he was living inside a web of rivalries. Death Row Records, Bad Boy Records, Suge Knight, Orlando Anderson, and Southside Crips. The people around him. The night of the Vegas shooting were a mix of friends, security, and known gang members. The shooters have never been officially convicted until 2023 when Dwayne Keefe D. Davis was indicted as a conspirator in the Las Vegas shooting, but even this case is still unfolding. The pattern people point out. After the first shooting, Tupac grew suspicious of, or that law enforcement, FBI, or music execs were manipulating beefs to control or eliminate them. His inner circle kept changing. People who stood next to him sometimes had hidden loyalties. It was not always an obvious assassin. It was often accessed through business, friendships, or protection teams. Tupac didn't get killed by a stranger out of nowhere. He was surrounded by friends, security, record execs, as well as rivals, all blurred lines. The ones who get you are usually the ones that's close enough to shake your hand. Bob Marley. What about the facts concerning him? In 1976, gunmen stormed Bob Marley's house 2 days before his Smile Jamaica concert. He was shot, but he survived. No one was ever convicted. Declassified CIA documents show U.S. intelligence was active in Jamaica at the time, funding one political faction over another. Marley's free concert was seen as benefiting the opposite side. The alleged poison shoe, sneaker, or boot story comes from a man named Carl Colby. That was the son of a former CIA director, William Colby, who visited Marley in 1976 as a photographer or as a journalist. There's two narratives that's being spread. But witnesses claim he gifted him a pair of shoes, sneakers, or boots that had a copper wire hidden inside, and it pricked his toe. And the story was repeated by several of Bob's associates later, but it's never been proven in court. And regardless, Marley's melanoma began in the same toe not long after. And the pattern people pointed out was that the ones who could get near Bob Marley weren't random strangers. They had reasons to be in his home or backstage or in his circle. The gunmen in 1976 were linked to Kingston's political gangs, which were receiving weapons and training from outside power. Bob Marley's enemies didn't stand in a crowd. They came as visitors. Remember my video about jealousy and envy, and I spoke of the story in the beginning? This is what I'm speaking about. So they came as visitors, photographers, journalists. They came as gifts. They didn't need to find him. He opened his door to them. And that's how power always worked. Not with a public bullet, but with a private handshake. The core lesson that both would tell us today is never the obvious enemy. It's the one who can get closest without raising suspicion. Protect your circle. Everyone with a smile isn't your friend. Power studies you before it strikes you. Have spiritual discernment. Energy doesn't lie, even when people do. And this is a way that I can teach you, my audience, without naming unproven conspirators, right? I just want to emphasize the pattern. that is random, you know. And let me speak from a completely different angle, because there's also more, there are more energies that I would like to speak of, that was definitely that were definitely, although I didn't mention them too, they need to be mentioned. So I'm going to bring all of it, tie it all together, so you can get a complete understanding. The difference between icons who serve the people versus those who serve the system. Because today we have icons that serve the system. And this is about critical thinkers versus system benefiting celebrities. I think I may need to do this as a separate video. So I'm going to end this here, but I'm going to bring in Bob Marley and Tupac. But I believe I need to separate this because it's very important, a message that I want to get out. So I'm going to end it here, and I'm going to put them both out at the same time. See you on the next one.